Tonight's shir should be Le'ilui Nishmat Yisrael ben Binyamin and Tzivia bat Esther and Sarah bat Miriam. This week's parasha, Tetzaveh, talks about the job that the Kohen Gadol and all of the other Kohanim have within the Avodah, within the service in the Mishkan. Last week's parasha talked about the inception of the Mishkan. Now we're talking about the practical points that were happening on a day-to-day basis. Now, initially, we are led in this parasha to a very lengthy description about all the clothing that the Kohanim used to wear. And we know that the regular Kohanim wore 4 garments. The Kohen Gadol had 8 garments. Each one of these garments was a kapara, served as an atonement for a specific type of Aveirah. There was the Aveirah of Lashon Hara, the Aveirah of improper thoughts, Aveirah of Azut Panim, brazenness, many Aveirot. And the Kohen Gadol had to wear these 8 garments all the time when he was serving in the Mishkan and ultimately in the Beit HaMikdash. All the time. Any time that he would not wear even one of these garments, he would be chayav. His life would be on the line. It would be chayav mitah. So what was so important that he had to wear all these clothes that would atone for different types of averot? He had to wear it all the time. This is what we're trying to push it in God's face, as it were. So I heard an interesting answer to this. And it's a very, very practical point which comes out of this. Because a person must realize that Hashem is intimately concerned and intimately involved in the lives of every single Jew. In fact, He's concerned with all of creation. And we might know this fact in a superficial way. Anyone who's a thinking person will know that God is involved in creation. But to know that in your head and to know that in your heart, that Hashem is constantly concerned with what every Jew does all the time. If a person doesn't know that, it can lead him to all sorts of aveirot. I'll give you an example. Let's say a person believes in Hashem, but it's not all consuming. It's not an all consuming belief. So now if a person believes you can go to shul in the morning, or maybe just once a week, you would eat kosher and keep Shabbat, but there are times when you don't have to think about God. You can go about your daily life, you can go about your work or your social activities, and Hashem, I've done my worship of God for the week. I did that on Shabbat. Now, Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, whatever, I'm going to put Hashem, leave him back in the Chumash, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And this person is making a terrible mistake because he doesn't realize that Hashem is concerned with what he does every single moment of every single day. Now that he's under the mistaken impression that he can leave Hashem behind, now he can do whatever he wants. Because, look, Hashem has got so much to worry about. And I've done my job now, because I went to shul on Shabbat. Now I don't have to worry about it now for another week. Or I've gone to shul on Yom Kippur, and, previous to that I went on Rosh Hashanah. I don't need to go for another year. So now he thinks he can do what he wants. Hashem's not concerned with me. I've paid him off. I've paid him my bakshish. Now that he's got my bakshish, thank you very much, I can do what I want. The clothing of the Kohen Gadol is proving exactly the opposite. Because Hashem is concerned with every single Jew of every single moment he needs to be connected to Hashem. The Jew has to be connected. Just like the Kohen Gadol, he cannot perform the service without wearing these clothes, which consistently reminds him of all these connections to Hashem, all these corrections, all these things where Hashem is watching over him. Hashem is concerned. Are you going to be serving me in this way? Are you going to be serving me in that way? Make sure not to do this over there. Hashem does not want us to go astray. Not even for one moment. When we come and we put our shoes on in the morning, put your right shoe in first, put your left shoe, and then you tie your right lace, you tie your left lace. Who cares? A person would think, who cares? Hashem cares about which way I put my shoes on? That's going to make a difference to Hashem? No, Hashem cares about, saving, starving people and all that. What does He care about how I do my shoes? That's not true. Because Hashem cares even when you put your shoes on, even when you go to the bathroom, even when you do the most mundane things. He's concerned every single day, 24/7. The person has to realize this. And the problem happens when a person thinks he can disconnect from Hashem. He doesn't need Hashem. And Hashem doesn't need me. And when you have that type of problem, you have people who lack in self-esteem because they feel, if my own creator, I can do what I want, He doesn't need me, He's not concerned with everything that I do, then I can do what I want. And now I feel once I do what I want, nobody's looking after me. I've lost my connection. And then you get people suffering from low self-esteem. Why does a person suffer from low self-esteem or depression? Because he feels nobody's concerned with me. Nobody cares about what I do. I'm a free bird. I do what I want every day. And because he feels nobody's concerned with what he does, then his life becomes hefker. It becomes, freedom. Or we think it's freedom. So the Kohen Gadol teaches us, really a person must realize Hashem is on his back every day. Not because Hashem is waiting to punish you. Not because Hashem He's waiting for a small Avirah and He's going to put a lightning bolt from heaven and kill you. That's not what Hashem wants. Hashem is like the loving father who's constantly on the children's back, as it were. Making sure, are you doing the right thing? Are you serving me properly? That's the idea that we have to get. Hashem is constantly concerned, and Hashem is constantly caring for all of His creation, especially His B'ni B'chori, His chosen people, the Jewish people. And we mentioned that each of these bagadim, each of these items of clothing was a kapara for a different Aveirah. I want to talk about the avneit. The avneit was the sash that the Kohen Gadol used to wear. And this sash made a kapara, made an atonement for a person if he had improper thoughts. If a person his thoughts were not directed to Hashem, and he starts thinking bad things which are nothing to do with Hashem, then this avneit would give a kapara for this particular type of aveirah. So a person might think, if I have thoughts in my head that are not of Hashem, is that really my fault? If I'm purposely going out and wanting to think about things that are not correct, and I'm looking for things to think about which are nothing to do with Hashem, then okay, I understand that needs a punishment. But sometimes a thought comes in your head and you can't help it. What's it got to do with me? So listen to the following story, and this will give you an idea of a person's responsibility. So there was once a chassid, a young chassid, who had exactly this problem. Very often he had thoughts came into his head that were nothing to do with Avodat Hashem. They were exactly the opposite. Things which drew him away from serving Hashem. And he was very concerned. So he went to his Rebbe, who happened to be the Rebbe of Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich. So the Maggid said to him, look, I cannot tell you what to do. But there is a rabbi who will give you a lesson and show you exactly what you must do. And will teach you how to avoid improper thoughts. His name is Rabbi Ze'ev of Zhitomir. Rabbi Ze'ev. Go to Rabbi Ze'ev, travel to him, stay with him, and he will teach you how to stop having improper thoughts. Okay, so the Chassid went, it was a long journey, and he managed to get to the house of this Rabbi Ze'ev quite late at night. So he came, he knocked on the door, no answer. He knocked again, no answer. This is very strange. Starts like a third time, fourth time, and the Rebbe knew he was coming. Why is he not opening the door? So now he's becoming very concerned. He's hammering away, he's shouting, Rebbe, I've come to see you. My Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich, told me to come to you. Why are you not answering the door? And he was so concerned. And it got later and later and later, and this Chassid was waiting and waiting and waiting. Nobody opened the door. Eventually, it became so late that the sun came out, it became daytime. And this man thought, well, I don't know what to do. And then the door opened. And Rabbi Ze'ev opened the door. Without even saying a word, he told the Chassid to come inside. And the Chassid stayed with the Rebbe for 1 or 2 days. During which time, the Rebbe didn't even say anything to the Chassid. Didn't say anything. Didn't apologize. Why didn't open the door? Nothing. Now, towards the end of the stay, when the Chassid wanted to go home, he realized, look, this whole thing has been a big waste of time. I was told to come here to get some sort of lesson about how to control my thoughts, and this Rebbe, first of all, he didn't want to answer the door to me, and then he doesn't even say anything to me, doesn't apologize, doesn't mention it. So this Chassid now he's feeling, I have to say something. So he said, excuse me, Rabbi, you know I was waiting outside for you 2 days ago for so long. You didn't even answer the door. And then when he answered the door, he didn't say anything. Why did the Rebbe behave like this? So the Rebbe then spoke, and he gave his answer. He said, you know why I did not answer the door? Because a Baal Habayit is in control of his house. And he controls who comes into the house and who stays outside. And then the Chassid realized, from one sentence he got the Musar. A man is a balabait on his brain, on his mind. He's in control. A person has to realize this, that if bad thoughts come into your mind, that's because you invited them there. Maybe you didn't realize you invited them there. Either you invite them because you go after them, we're not even talking about that type of person. Or you invited them because it's something which is on your mind, something which you may have seen inadvertently, you may have seen whatever. And when these thoughts come in, you don't make enough effort to stop them. But a person has to realize he's in control. A person is always in control of what comes into his mind, what he looks at during the day, what he listens to during the day. He's always in control. And if something is inappropriate, you don't answer the door. You stop it there and then. And this is a very big musar for everybody. A person must realize, if he's suffering from thinking about things he should not think about, you have to look within yourself. Perhaps I didn't shut my mind. Perhaps I entertained some thoughts at another time, and now I'm becoming desensitized. As soon as a person realizes that he is the master of his own mind, then these thoughts will disappear. And if they don't disappear, he can banish them. He can shut the door. Now, while we're on the subject of the Kohen Gadol, he had to wear a certain beged called a me'il. A me'il means a coat. And this me'il had bells in the shape of pomegranates all over the bottom of the garment. Why were these bells on this garment? Because the Kohen Gadol had to wear this garment even when he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the holiest of holies. Why did he have to wear these bells? So the simple answer is that when he goes into a room, wherever he goes, people have to know that he's coming. Because a person cannot just turn up somewhere unannounced. People have to know in advance when they hear the bells that he's coming. So what we learn from this in a simple way is that a person mustn't burst in somewhere. He mustn't just open a door and run in. You have to knock. You have to have derech eretz. People have to know that you're coming. You shouldn't just roll up unannounced. That's the simple understanding we get from the Kohen Gadol wearing these bells. Everybody knew where he was. I heard a different and more interesting, an alternative answer. Why the Kohen Gadol wears these bells. I'll tell you the following story. Somebody once came to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who was the head of the Musar movement, and they said to him, Rabbi, I'm wearing my talit every day, and I make my bracha on my talit gadol, that is, my talit gadol every day I make bracha, and I want to ask you, Rabbi, what kavanah do I need? What concentrations? What I should be thinking in my mind? What malachim? What angels shall I think about? What holy thoughts of the higher worlds must I be concerned with when I put on my talit? So the Rebbe said to him, my son, shall I tell you what your main concentration should be when you're putting on your talit? And the fellow said, please Rabbi, tell me. He said, your main thought should be that when you put your talit and you put the tzitzit over your back, make sure nobody's standing behind you and you don't whip him with your tzitzit. What do we understand from this? A person may have very, very high thoughts. He thinks, I have to serve Hashem in the best way. I've got to be concerned with this kavanah, that kavanah, this chumrah, this stringency here, there. And they forget there's basic things. All the simple things that every Jew has to do, no, these go by the wayside. I must think about all the pratim, all the finer details. And yet they forget basics. So this is another lesson that the Kohen Gadol is teaching us. That a person can be like the Kohen Gadol. He can go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. He goes in once a year. He's got all these high thoughts and kavanot and concentrations. What is the Torah telling him? Don't forget the simple things. Don't forget to knock before you go in. Don't forget to show people, tell people, announce people you're coming. So, it's all very well to have very, very lofty thoughts and lofty ideas, but you must never have these lofty ideas and all these stringencies at the expense of the normal, basic, everyday things that every Jew has to do. That is a very important lesson in these days when people are very, very into chumrot. They have to be machmir and this thing and that thing. It's very nice. Sometimes, I'm not saying don't be machmir, don't take on extra things. But Habibi, use your head. Before you take on a chumrah, first of all, if you want to take on a chumrah, do it for yourself. Don't take on this extra stringency at the expense of your wife, or expense of your children, or expense of your friends. Because you take on a stringency, take it on for you. If you're concerned about them, don't be concerned about them. they will look at you and they will follow you if they're on that level. But don't take a stringency on, expect everyone to do that when you yourself are not doing the simple things yourself. You have to constantly think, if I'm taking on extra things, am I alienating other people? If I'm living in a house, let's say I'm a child, I'm living with my parents, and my parents they're observant people, but I have become now very, very frum, which is good, nothing wrong with being frum. You'll never hear me saying it's a bad thing to be an observant Jew. It's good. And now you want to take on a very high level of kashrut. You only have this level of kashrut. And now you make your whole family take on this extra high level of kashrut. And they are taking on a regular level of kashrut. They're not ready to take on an extra stringency, which for you is very good because you're on that level. And now you're forcing them. You're going to estrange them. You're going to alienate them. You're going to make them think the wrong things. What you should do is you should take on the chumrah for yourself. And then they will look at you and say, wow, we thought we were from. Now our son or our daughter is even more from. Maybe, let's see what they're doing. Maybe we'll do it ourselves. First, check yourself first. Before you try and... Again, I'm only talking about stringencies. I'm not talking about the basics. If you want another person to take on basics, that's fair enough. I'm talking about extra stringencies which are above and beyond. It's a very strict definition. There are basics and there are stringencies. I'm only talking about stringencies now. Now there's a puzzling midrash which talks about the avodah of the Kohen Gadol when he was lighting the menorah. Because this week's parasha, apart from talking about all the clothing of the Kohanim, it also talks about Aaron HaKohen and his job of lighting the menorah. And I very, very often talk about Aaron's lighting of the menorah because it's an incredible thing how every time that he lit that menorah, all the days and all the years of his life, he had the same enthusiasm every day for that mitzvah. Like a child has enthusiasm when he makes a bracha or he learns a pasuk. Aaron was like that, had that same enthusiasm even when he was 110, 120 years old. So that was Aaron. We should all be like that. Halavai, we should all be like that. But there's a puzzling reason from the Midrash why Hashem gave us the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. Because Hashem does not need anything. He doesn't need any of this avodah. So why would Hashem require that a Kohen Gadol light the menorah every day? Hashem needs the light? No. So the Midrash gives the following reason. The Midrash says that Hashem was telling the Jewish people that because I gave you light in the desert, because Hashem provided the clouds of glory when the Jews were in the 40 years in the desert, they had lights, they had a well of water, they had the manna from heaven, they had all the conveniences. One of the things they had was light. They had constant light when they were traveling through. So Hashem told the Jewish people, according to the Midrash, because I gave you light in the desert for 40 years, therefore I'm giving you the mitzvah of the menorah so that you can pay me back with giving me some light. Very puzzling Midrash. You should be screaming now. First of all, when Hashem gives unconditionally. Hashem never expects us to pay back. Basar v'dam, which is flesh and blood, in other words, human beings, when a human being gives another human being something, they expect something back. There's always some agenda. You know, when you give somebody something, you expect something back. It's very rare, it's unconditional. But that's not Hashem. Hashem, when He gives, of course He doesn't expect anything back. That's one question. Second question is, does Hashem need light? Hashem doesn't need anything. Every day in our tefillah, we say in Vayevarach David, we say that Hashem is, and I quote, Umromam al kol beracha utehillah. Hashem is beyond all blessing and prayer. Hashem does not need our prayers. He doesn't need anything. If He doesn't need our prayers, He doesn't need our light, He doesn't need anything. So what does it mean Hashem says, because I gave you, now give me back? Very, very puzzling. There is an amazing answer to this. And I'm going to quote to you, I'll give you an example. I'm going to mention to you a Persian phrase which I used to hear very much when I was growing up. If somebody is in a habit of accepting free gifts or free things all the time, in Persian they call such a person a muftakhur. Muft means free. He likes taking freebies. Now, imagine if you're a type of person who likes to give things for free. So in other words, let's talk about Shimon and Levi. Now, Shimon has... let's give an example. Shimon wants to give a box of chocolates to Levi, because Levi is going somewhere for Shabbat, and it's getting close now to Shabbat. He has to go and go to wherever he's going for Shabbat, and he realizes, oy vey, I haven't got a gift to take with me. He goes to his neighbor Shimon. He says, Shimon, look, there's nothing in the cupboard. I haven't got any. Do you have anything I can take for Shabbat to this guest I'm going to? Shimon says, sure. I've got a nice box of chocolates. Take it. So Levi says, thank you so much. Levi goes for Shabbat, gives it to his host. On once a Shabbat, he comes back home. And he straight away goes to Shimon. He says, Shimon, you know, you really saved me. You gave me those chocolates and you bailed me out. So tell me how much those chocolates cost and I'll pay you back. Shimon says, don't worry about it. Levi says, what do you mean don't worry about it? You gave me an expensive box of chocolates. Let me pay you back. Okay, if you don't want me to pay you back, at least let me buy the chocolates and replace for you like for like. Shimon says, no, it's okay, don't worry about it. And now Levi, on one side, he's flattered. He said, my friend Shimon just gave me a box of chocolates for free. But on the other side, he's thinking now, I owe him something. He's not letting me pay him back. Now I owe him something. And until I give him something back, I'm always going to be beholden to him. And Shimon, in effect, might have been thinking the same thing. He might have thought, you know what? I'm not going to let him pay me back. Because I want him to owe me something. I want him to feel that he needs me. I want him to feel that he owes me something. So that next time I'm going to ask him something, he's going to feel really bad if he doesn't give it to me. Now Shimon might not be thinking this consciously. Maybe he's not, like, he doesn't have any. But subconsciously, when a person gives something muft, free, really he's got an agenda. Really he's thinking, at least he's thinking in the back of his mind, now I've got the other guy. He owes me a favour. And that's why Hashem said, you light for me a menorah. Hashem has no need for this light. Hashem doesn't need anything. But But he didn't want the Jews to feel that for 40 years he was giving light, giving food, giving water, giving everything, giving clothing. And for them to feel, we're getting free, muft all the time. And now they feel that they're beholden to Hashem. Hashem said, you know what? I'm giving you an opportunity to give something back to me. Not for me, because I'm Hashem, I don't need anything. But I want you to feel that you're doing something to offset that feeling of owing somebody. When you owe somebody, you feel like that. You owe somebody, it's not necessarily a good feeling. And somebody who's really sensitive to this, he won't be able to sleep at night. Because he feels, look, this fellow's doing something for me on a regular basis, and he's not allowing me to give back to him. And what am I going to do? I owe him so much. And a person feels helpless. And I'm going to extend this idea a little bit. I wasn't going to say this. But I'll tell you a story that I heard about a certain Hasidic Rebbe. Okay, we're talking all about Hasidim today, I don't know why. Got Hasidim on the brain today. So there was a certain Hasid, a young Hasid, who needed, as if I remember the story right, this certain Hasid needed some money for something. Like he probably had to marry off his daughter. So he went to his Rebbe, who was, apart from being a Rebbe, he was wealthy. And he asked the Rebbe, please I need help with this money. So the Rebbe went and paid him the entire amount. And in addition to this amount of money, he took from his pocket a bag of cherries. A bag of black cherries. And he gave them to the Chassid. He said, apart from the money, now I'm giving you these cherries as well. And the Chassid is like, what are these cherries for? I only asked for money. So he didn't want to say anything to his rabbi. He takes the money home, he takes the cherries home, and he's puzzled, thinking all of the thoughts. Maybe he gave me the cherries, he wanted me to make a broipria 8, and maybe he didn't give me one, he gave me a whole bag, so maybe he wants me to share and give everyone ha'etz, because ha'etz is a bracha for pre-beten. He's making all cheshbonot, all different thoughts going. He's asking his friends, why did my rabbi give me a bag of cherries? He couldn't think of any concrete, proper reason why his Rebbe would do such a thing. And of course his curiosity was getting the better of him. So he went back to his rabbi and said, Rabbi, I hope you don't mind me asking. I'm really curious to know why you gave me this bag of cherries. The Rebbe said to him, you know why I gave them to you? I wanted you to eat them so that you would be left with small stones, small pips. So that if in some later time you wanted to throw stones at me, you would have this small bag of pips, and you would only throw the pips at me. Now what did the Rebbe mean by this? And the answer to this is something that I never knew until relatively recently, and the more we think about it, it's very, very true. When a person receives freebies and he gets favours from other people all the time, on a regular basis, and he's constantly taking, and not giving back, such a person who's on the receiving end will have a very opposite reaction from what you think. That person who's receiving will start to hate the person who is giving to him. Now you might think this is very strange, and if you would have told this to me 5 years ago, I would say, what rubbish, it's nonsense. A person who's receiving, at the end of the day, he feels gratitude. He's not going to hate the person. But through my experience in recent years, I experienced through different people that I know, through things that I heard, that it's very, very true. When a person does for other people, and those other people don't get the chance to pay back, they don't get a chance to offset their virtual debt, then those people who are receiving the good all the time, they will end up having the most bad thoughts. They'll start hating them. They want to pick up stones and throw them. So the Rebbe was telling you want to throw stones? Throw the pips. Take the small stones. So if a person wants to give all the time, it could be a parent. A parent is constantly giving to the child. The child is living under his roof. And the parent is giving. The child, he's receiving. If he's not given the chance to pay back the parent, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about anything, to help in the house, to just, if he's not given the chance to pay back, that child will hate the parent. Chas v'chalila. A person must never receive without being given the opportunity to give back. Now, it's not up to the person who's receiving to find opportunities. I mean, it is, but it can be, the situation can be remedied by the person who's giving. He should also give an opportunity for the person to give back. Let's give a rough example. And my father used to do this actually, I'm remembering now from my father, alav shalom. People used to come to him for various favours. And initially he would say, don't worry about it. If it was a small favour, he would say, don't worry. But then ultimately, you know what he used to do? And I learned from this. Very important what he used to do. He used to say to me, no, I'm not giving you this favour for free. And he used to take out from his drawer, or from nearby, he would take out a tzedakah pushka, and say, put money in the box. So in other words, I'm not giving you a freebie. You don't, but at the same time, you don't have to pay me back. But put money in the box. Because a person mustn't get something for free. He has to feel he's paying for it, he's doing something back. And when you put the money in the tzedakah, it's a win-win situation. The person who's putting the tzedakah box on the table, he's winning. The person who takes the money from his pocket and puts it in the box, he's winning. And you know who's getting nachat from that? You know who's getting the greatest pleasure from that? Hashem. Hashem sees his two children, two Jews. One does a favour for the other one, and he's making the other one give tzedakah. It's the greatest thing. What greater pleasure is there for Hashem? So this is what this midrash is trying to tell us. A person shouldn't feel he's getting something for free, because it will only make negative feelings. He has to feel that he's giving something back, instead of all the time taking. It's so unhealthy. It is so unhealthy to be on the receiving end all the time. In fact, the Chazal tell us, Soneh matanot tchya. Somebody who hates gifts will live. What does it mean? Does it mean when somebody gives you a present, you throw it back in his face and say, look, I'm not going to die, take it back? That's not what it means. It means when a person receives something, he has to feel a certain, no magia. This is not, I don't want to love this present, because otherwise it's going to make me a person of lesser stature. I need to feel like, I'm not always taking, I need to give as well. Sometimes the giving might be in the form of the taking. In other words, sometimes a person wants to give a present to somebody else, and the person shouldn't say, no, I'm not going to take the gift, because I don't want freebies. But his receiving of the gift, in effect, can be like his giving. Because when a person takes something from somebody else, he can give back. The receiving can be a chesed to the person who's giving it. So in other words, let's say if you have an older person, and let's say, this older person, he makes, or she, let's say, she makes chalot every Friday. And she gives the chalot to her neighbours. And one of the neighbours who's receiving the chalot says, you know what? I went to Shir Rabbi Kalati and he told me not to receive any gifts, so I'm sorry, you have to take them back. So the old lady says, what do you mean? I made these for you. And he says, no, Rabbi Kalati told me definitely in the shiur, you must not receive gifts, take it away. Or he says it in a nicer way. Please take it away. But that's also a fundamental mistake. Because when a person receives, sometimes the receiving is the chesed. So in the ideal situation, when a person sees the effort that somebody's made for them, that this woman has made chalot, she's kneaded the dough, she's put it in the oven, she's made it so nice it smells beautiful, and she's giving it to me. When you take it, you should think and realize that when you take it, you're giving her. What are you giving her? You're giving her nachat. You're giving her pleasure. You're showing her, you are important to me. Because you made chalot for me, you are so precious to me. What you've done for me is unbelievable. If you make her feel like that, that's not called receiving gifts. That's called giving gifts. Because the challah, okay, that's a side thing. Receiving the challah, fine, but you give her the nachat, you say, oh, you made these specially for me? You took the time? I really appreciate it. I'm going to take them and use them at my Shabbat table. And I want to tell you that I really appreciate what you did for me. The time you spent making these for me and my family, thank you so much. That is called giving, not taking. But the lowest level is a person who just takes and he doesn't even say thank you. That's what we're talking about here. That's the muftachor. That's the guys after the freebies. He doesn't even say thank you. That's not even a level. That's not even on the map. That's terrible. And finally, I'm going to finish off. I'm going to talk about the tzitz. The tzitz was the breastplate, the head plate that the Kohen used to wear when he did the avodah. He had a plate which was across his head. He used to have to wear it all the time when he was doing the avodah. And on this plate was written the words Kodesh LaHashem, holy to God. Now we know that all the begadim we said, they all had a specific purpose. They had a kapara for this, a kapara for that. What was the kapara of this head plate? What did it mean, Kodesh LaHashem? What atonement was this meant for the people of Israel? And the answer is that this head plate was a kapara for azut panim, which roughly speaking means brazenness. If a person is very, I suppose you could call it in a way, not exactly, you call it chutzpah. A person who's very bold and brash and chutzpah, it's a terrible thing. And this plate will atone for this specific sin. Now, why does the Kohen Gadol have to wear this plate all the time? Every time he's going to do the avodah, he must wear this plate. Does that mean a person, has to be concerned for not doing azut panim all the time? Is it such a common thing? So I'm going to finish off with a story which will explain why this plate was on the Kohen Gadol's head all the time. And with this I'll finish. Beli neder. There was once a yeshiva in Russia, I believe it was Russia, called the Novardok Yeshiva. In the yeshiva in Novardok, at one time, when the Talmidim were learning with their Rebbe, there came to the door some Bolsheviks. I think it was Bolsheviks. Anyway, some bad Russian people. They came to the door. Now, they didn't just come and they didn't knock. They didn't announce themselves like the Kohen Gadol with the bells. They didn't knock at the door and says, "Can we come in, please?" They bashed down the door and they ran in. And they went straight to the rabbi. And they said, "You must close down this yeshiva straight away. And all of you guys get out or we're going to kill all of you." Well, one minute these boys were learning Torah, and the next minute they had their lives in the balance. What on earth were they going to do? What did the rabbi do? The rabbi took his shirt, he unbuttoned his shirt, he opened it up, and he said to the head of these Bolsheviks, he said, "Shoot me right here, right now. Do it! I'm not afraid of you." And when all the Talmidim, they saw their Rebbe like this, they also unbuttoned their shirts. They pulled them like this. "Come on! Shoot! You want to kill us? We're learning our holy Torah. We're not going to listen to you." And these guys, I don't know, these Bolsheviks, either they were confused or they were genuinely, could be they were genuinely impressed. They put down their guns and they went out. What do we learn from the story? What we learn from the story is that a Jew can use azut panim, the quality of brazenness, the quality of "I will not let go." Ani lo mevater, they say in modern Hebrew. I will not forgo. I have a holy Torah and I'm sticking to it. Doesn't matter, you put a gun to my head, you put me in the gas chamber, no difference. I have a holy Torah and I have a God in heaven and He tells me what to do and I do it. You're not going to tell me what to do. That's called azut panim for the positive. That's why the Kohen Gadol has to wear this on his head. Because it shows him that even the quality of azut panim, even the quality of being brash and brazen and chutzpah, that also has a place within the service of a Jew to his Creator. You can even use this, you would think it's only negative. Somebody to be like this all the time. "No, I refuse. You would think this is so negative. How can you serve Hashem with such a thing? The answer is, there is a time and a place for everything. To some degree. Even being stubborn. Just like those Jews in the Novardika yeshiva. They were prepared to give up their lives. But they did it with azut panim. It was like they had the tzitz in front of their head. Kodesh LaHashem. And maybe that's why they were saved. Because they used this negative, seemingly negative characteristic, they used it for the positive. And I said Bli Neder for a reason. I now know what the reason is. I've got one tiny more thing to mention. That I heard once from Rabbi Frand Shlita, that you can even use the Aveira of kefirah, of non-belief in Hashem, for a positive reason. You would never believe it. How on earth can a person use non-belief in Hashem for a proper holy purpose? Says Rabbi Frand the following ingenious answer. If a person comes to you and he says to you, "I'm a poor guy, I need help. I've got children in hospital. I've got a wife who's unwell, she's undergoing surgery. I've got debts up to my eyebrows. I've got this, I've got that," or whatever. And he comes with a whole long story. He says, a person can be permitted to think that the Ribono Shel Olam will not help that person. A person who's being asked for charity can think about the person who needs the charity. He can think, you know that person who's got all these sorrows and all this, Hashem won't help him. So you know what? I'm going to help him. And he can give the money. You understand the principle? A person can even believe that Hashem won't help. He can even disbelieve Hashem to a degree and believe that because Hashem won't help him, now I have to help him. And that will inspire him to go and do the mitzvah to give tzedakah. Such a far-fetched reason. But there's something to it. Everything in this life, every midah, every characteristic can be used in Avodah Hashem. Even pride, which is, we're supposed to get rid of pride. And even anger, we're supposed to get rid of anger completely. Even those very negative midot, there's still a way that we can use them in our Avodat Hashem. Yehi Ratzon, it should be Hashem's will that all of us should use our God-given characteristics, which we had no choice in. We were never chosen to be born a man or a woman, or to be born clever, or all these other midot that we have. We were not. They were given to us. So may we all realize that whatever midot we have, whether they be positive or seemingly negative, may we all realize that these are God-given characteristics, and we should all put them to good use in our Avodat Hashem, and we should do it for ourselves, inspire our families, inspire our communities, and inspire Klal Yisrael until the day when we will all be dancing before Mashiach Tzidkenu. May it happen in our time. Tetzaveh v'miyad v'chein, yehi ratzon v'lemar amen.